Hey everyone, welcome back to Gear Glazers. I'm Kyle, and this is Mike, aka President Zelensky. And today, we're continuing our series on Hypebeast. And on this episode, we're talking about the BMW M2. We're taking a look at the impact this car has had on car culture and answering the question, was it worth the hype? Mike, talk to me.
Dude, how can I even care about the BMW M2 when there's a war going on our borders now?
Yeah, you got roasted.
They got me with that one. Yeah, dude, I'm excited to talk about the M2 because we've been talking about a bunch of cars that are like direct competitors to this thing, and every single time I'm thinking like, glaze this, not that, which car would I take instead of it? And it's always the M2. This thing just seems to be such a good pick over so many cars.
Okay, you're gonna have to give me a sec. I feel like we're wearing two AirPods this time, because we're trying to beat the allegations that we share one pair of AirPods, but I actually just hear M2 roaring in my ears. I can barely hear you. I'm gonna pop this out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wear just this one.
Some of you commented that we're sharing one pair of AirPods. It's 2 cases of AirPods.
And we're never beating the allegations.
Never beating the allegations. I don't know. I'm excited to be talking about the M2 because every time we talk about another car, I'm like, I would rather have the M2. It's like, for a lot of cars.
You do say that. You did say that for the C8. You have been saying that a lot.
I said that about a lot of cars because it's like, it's right up there in performance with a lot of cars that we're looking at, and it comes in a manual.
Okay, so I'm sorry for everyone watching this who's just a huge M2 fan, but like, what is this thing, right? Because like, when this thing came out, I feel like it was pretty hyped. That's why it's in this series. Mm-hmm. But really, like, it came off the back of the M1. Which when the M1 came out, I was like, what is this? Why are they making an M car that's like so small? How does this make any sense? What's in this thing? How is it actually high performance? Like, I really don't even know about this car.
When you say the M1, you mean the 1 series from like the early 2000s?
Yeah, because that was the predecessor of this car, right? Like,
yeah, the 1 series. So the M1 is this weird like supercar thing that they made in like the 80s and 90s. But the 1 Series M is like, yeah, that was a weird car.
So after that, they came back with the M1. Sorry, 1 Series M.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what is that? It's like a go-kart.
The 1 Series M, like if you just get into like BMW history, BMW was going through like a weird identity crisis around that time, because if you look at what happened to the M3, the E36 M3 from like the late 90s, absolute performance beast, lightweight, ton of power for the time. Like everybody loves how that car handles. E46, direct successor, took the power up a notch, took the luxury up a little notch, took the performance up a big notch. And then they jumped to the E90, which they gave it a V8 engine, and they made it big. And the E90 was what, like late 2000s, early 2010s? That was around the time the 1 Series came out. And people were kind of wondering, like, what was that? It was like this weird, like, light version of a 3 Series. It didn't have a lot of power. It was not very performance-based. It didn't feel like a BMW at all. It felt like a Japanese car, like some weird, like, budget, like, Mercedes car, because it was, like, so much more focused on other things than the driving experience. But it was the size of like a light track car.
Yeah.
Super, super weird car.
Okay, so that thing was a little bit weird. This thing comes out, and what is this? Is this a M3 in a smaller body? Like, what is this car?
If you ask me, this is the direct successor to the M3. This is what the M3 was supposed to go. Like, this is where the M3 was supposed to go if we didn't fork off and make it bigger.
Interesting.
Because think about it like this. E36, the E36 M3 had the same engine as what their light car was at the time, which was the Z3 Roadster. Same car. Z3M, E36 M3, same engine. E46, same thing. Z4M, E46 M3, same engine. Then you go up into the V8 that they put in the M3 in the late 2000s. The Z4 didn't get that engine. It got a smaller turbocharged engine.
Okay.
And the 1 Series didn't get that engine either. It got like a naturally aspirated 6 and a 4-cylinder turbo. So like that was weird. But literally a decade later, this thing comes out and they gave it the same engine as the M3, but they put it in what people always wanted: a small package, track focused, driver focused.
So this is the same powertrain as an M3?
This is the exact same powertrain as an M3 and an M4.
Do you know how much less it weighs?
That's a great question. That's a candidate for a quick look up.
Because that's kind of sick then.
I know.
Like, I don't know. I see the M2 and like it just feels small. I like big body cars. something about this just doesn't have a lot of presence and stature. So I'm like, honestly, whatever. But finding out that it's the same powertrain as the M3 and the M4 in such a small, it's like, wow, this thing probably rips.
It does rip. It's not that much lighter, surprisingly. It's only 100 pounds lighter.
What?
I don't know. How
does that make any sense? Well, okay, so what is the purpose of this car then? Why does this exist if it's 100 pounds lighter than an M3?
I'll tell you why it exists. It's 60 grand. It's $56,000 or something.
How much is the M3?
The M3, let's see. This thing's 64 and the M3 76. That's why this exists.
Okay, so you're buying an M3 for what reason?
The M3 is a status symbol.
Okay.
It's a luxury car.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Because it like has more stature, it's more well known, it's a bigger body. Like you care about that, which I feel like I would care about.
A lot of people do.
Yeah. But if you don't care about that at all, you live in the mountains where that doesn't matter and literally you just care about driving performance, you get this thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because it's not the lighter, like it's that this thing is definitely going to be more sport focused. It's not going to have the like lack of responsiveness that people have criticized the F series and the G series M cars as having.
I've heard that they're like dead and numb a little bit.
Exactly. And this thing came with a manual. Like half of these things that were sold in 2023 were bought with a manual. Like it's not like one of those like dead vestigial manual options. Like people have these in stick, which makes me so excited.
So I feel like just talking about where this car fits in the lineup, like it's tough for me to get the car that is the lowest on the totem pole, right?
Yeah.
Like you're driving this thing and like M3s pull up next to you, M4s, M5s, M8s, and you're just the baby fish in the pond. Like, dude, that's kind of tough.
The problem is like BMW will never be able to compete on being like on making big, comfortable status symbol cars with Mercedes.
But even competing with other BMWs, I'm saying, like, it just feels like you're the little brother.
Yeah, for sure.
That's tough. Like, every time you pull up next to someone in traffic, they're just like, little bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
that's the problem with where BMW's been these days and why their lineup needs to be culled and their products need to be, like, refocused, though. It's because, like, BMW was always the company that didn't care. It was like, you want an uncompromised driving experience? That's what you're buying us for. You're not buying us because you saw that the AMG made this many horsepower, so now I want something that makes 5 more horsepower. The BMWs were never meant to do that.
Yeah.
They were supposed to have, like, the intangibles. So, yeah, you're right. It is for the people who don't care about that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the other cars are not, and I feel like they're selling really well. M3, M4, M5, and it's for people that do care what the Mercedes, what the Audi is doing. They, like, do want to compete with that.
Yeah, BMW is selling M cars like hotcakes.
Okay, so real quick, engine that's in this thing, you said it already, I think, but just refresh me.
S58,
okay.
which is the same exact one.
3-cylinder?
6-cylinder.
6-cylinder.
Twin turbo.
3-liter.
3-liter.
Okay.
Which, again, dude, if you want to talk about a return to form, again, go back to 2008 when BMW forked off and became the company that we all hate now. If they had gone the other way in another universe, this was the direct successor. All they had to do was go from the 3.2 liter straight 6 that was in the E46 M3 and go to a 3 or 3.2 liter straight 6 turbo.
Yeah, this is a straight 6 as well?
It's a straight 6. That's all they had to do.
Yeah.
It took them a decade to figure that out, but they got there eventually.
Okay, well, this car is actually pretty cool then. I will say that.
It makes me really, really happy to see, like, not only that this car is still being made, but that it's sold so well.
Yeah, so with that said, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Between the years of 2016 and 2021, we've got approximately 60,000 units sold globally.
Yeah.
And 11,000 units sold in the US, which, let's just pause there for a second. 19% of M2s were sold in the US. That's a pretty global car.
Yeah.
A lot of these cars are being sold outside of the US.
It's a small car. US likes big cars. That's got to be it.
There it is.
That's got to be
it. This is a driver's car that, like, you can actually use somewhere outside of the US with, like, tiny roads and tiny parking spaces. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. 11,000 units sold in the US over the course of 5 years. Dude, that's approximately, like, just over 2,000 units a year.
Yeah, for the M variation, mind you, though, because if you look at the 2 Series in general, it's a lot.
Yeah. Just for the M2.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I see more of these things, no? Like,
there's a lot of 2 Series, and it's hard because there's a lot of, like,
M240s and M.
The M lights, people call them.
M lights, yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Which are great cars also, because those are just the B58 engine instead of the S58. The S58 makes more power, but the B58 also a great tunable engine. Like, and the fact that BMW is using it for like entry-level M lights is like nuts. It's a great engine.
So we put this thing in the Hype Beast series, and my question is like, which I feel like we've answered, but I just want to rephrase, like, did this thing answer? Obviously it answered from a performance perspective. We got that. It's sick. But like, from a cultural significance perspective, like, do you think this did what it set out to do? And now that we've finished the entire first generation and now we're in the second generation of this car, was it worth the hype?
I actually think it didn't make that big of a media splash, honestly. BMW itself as a company is like not only understated with their designs and their like actual like product, they're also understated with their marketing.
Yeah. I definitely think from a media perspective it was kind of quiet, but like anytime you have a brand new M car, that's a big deal. People are gonna be like, I need to get behind the wheel of this thing. I need to see if it's worth it.
Yeah.
And I know that this car did that from a performance perspective, but like I'm kind of curious, like, did it do it from a perception perspective? Like, are people seeing this on the road and they're like, this is a sick car, I love the M2? Like, does it have the kind of clout that the M3 and the M4 have? Because when you see those cars, something in you is like, I gotta respect that.
Yeah. As car guys, for sure, but honestly, like, I think all the reputation that M has had in like being the standard for performance in the past, like however long they've been, I think that's due to the M3 and the M4. I don't think this car is a poster child. I think it's an entry-level M car, and if you're in the know and you know what it actually is, you respect it and you're hyped about it, but that's not the majority of people.
But, okay, and that's what I'm asking. Like, for most people, you see this thing and you just think like, oh, that's a nice... What do you even think when you see this?
Yeah.
You know it's not a 2 Series.
You think it's an entry-level, like, BMW. Like, you don't think it's... The M3 is the iPhone. The M3 is the gold standard. Like, this isn't that.
Yeah, see, that's so frustrating.
I know.
To drive this car, which is literally the same 0 to 60 as an M3, like the same powertrain, like probably more capable just because it's a little bit lighter, it's a smaller form factor, like,
yeah.
And then to just have people just look at your car and be like, oh, that's sick, that probably cost 30 grand, like, just like,
no, it's tough.
That's frustrating.
It's tough to park next to a bigger car and just like have it be overshadowed. It's not great. It's probably like fairly cramped on the inside. I haven't sat inside of one of these since like they first came out in like 2016 or 2014.
I was picking up a friend from like a luxury building, like over in like Aventura, and I saw a guy hop out of this, like an older guy, he's probably like in his 50s, and he had like another buddy with him, and like they got out, and I remember thinking like, oh wow, that's sick, like look at you, like,
I know, dude. Yeah,
like if he had hopped out of an M3 and M4, I'd been like, oh, of course, like stay like normal, but like they hopped out of an M2 and I was like, wow, like look at you go. Like,
yeah.
I was just like,
it's like a fun little it's
it's
like the closest thing BMW makes to a Miata, unfortunately.
Yes, exactly. But it doesn't make sense because a Miata has the performance to back that up. This thing somehow doesn't. This is somehow an M3 in sheep's clothing.
I know.
Which is like pretty interesting.
Yeah. And that might be what a lot of people want. You know what I mean? There's something to be said about having something that nobody really understands that is like really, really fun to you. It kind of feels like a secret. There's something there for that. But yeah, as far as like the whole BMW thing, I don't think this was the car that was carrying that. Yeah. This thing will do 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds.
What? Where did you get that number?
What number did you find?
3.9 seconds.
That was for the previous gen.
Are you sure?
Yeah. So the 2023 release gen, the G series, is 3.6.
I need to see 3.6. Yo, what?
What?
Oh my god. Yeah, it might be 3.6. All right. You know what? Hey, you win this one.
You want to know something crazy? It'll do 3.8 with the manual.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
That's nuts, right?
That is pretty nuts.
I saw it, and that's like.
Yeah, but who's driving that thing?
I know, it's gotta be like Shifty McGee over there. Like,
who's shifting that thing?
No, dude, Speed Racer. If you look at the forums, people with the C8s are having a hard time hitting the reported 0 to 60 numbers, whereas these things automatic will do 3.6 no problem. And there's literally people in the manuals on the forum showing us the receipts for having done like 3.8s.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Like, and that's BMW for you. Like, they don't understate.
They don't cap.
If they don't cap, and they actually underreport in a lot of cases.
That's crazy.
They're well known, especially with the B58 engines, for like underreporting their horsepower by like 50.
I actually have heard that many times.
Yeah.
Yo, let's look at this interior.
Bare bones, baby.
Okay, but here's the thing. I like that here, and I'll tell you why. Somehow getting the same interior that I'm getting in a freaking M8.
Yeah.
Essentially, like, yes, there's some differences. The seat are
Yeah.
For the most part, this looks the same. The steering wheel looks the same. The screens look the same. Like, the trim looks the same. Like, the seats look pretty freaking similar.
Yeah.
It's not quilted, but, like, it looks similar. Like, conversation for another day. BMW interiors are very nice, but there's not enough variance, I think, between the lowest and the highest trim.
I agree with that. Because there is a large market of people who buy these things looking for luxury. I have a different complaint. My complaint is that I think what they need to go for is like, my apartment isn't empty because I'm broke, it's empty because I'm a minimalist.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's more of that they could do, because the interior is not quite minimalist, it just kind of looks empty.
Yeah, it does. It looks a little bit empty. I love the seats in the M cars, bro. The modern M cars
Yeah.
have just beautiful, beautiful seats. And I think people take that for granted.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to. There are many other cars that don't have such nice seats. Like, dude, they're just... The interiors of these things actually surprised me. I was in one of the M3s recently. You were with me.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that thing blew my mind a little bit. I was like, this is a beautiful head, the all blue interior. It was very nice.
Yeah, it's function over form for sure. Like, there are some nice trim pieces and things that they put to justify the price tag, but BMW, and that's what it should be. It should be function over form for sure. I actually just saw this funny Reddit thread comparison between actual M cars and M light cars. So if you buy an actual M2, it doesn't have anything that like a BMW MX 40 or 40i or whatever the like BMW SUV that's like an M car is, but like not a real M car, like not an X5, but like.
What do you mean it has the same things in it?
No. So the SUV has like lights that like shine on the ground, and it has M badges all over the interior, and the M badge on the exterior is like this big.
Okay.
Versus this thing, you'll be hard pressed to find an M badge. There's a couple of like the M colored stripes around, but they don't badge it crazy on the outside. There's no lights that project M onto the ground. Like it's actually a performance car versus all the other cars in their lineup that are trying to be performance cars.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that is pretty cool.
It's hilarious. Weird decisions made by BMW with their like M light products.
I mean, I came here to complain about this car, but the more I learn about it, the more I'm like, yo, hey, excuse me, boss, do your thing.
How much are you buying here if it's not just the drivetrain and the suspension?
Yeah.
Just give me the drivetrain and suspension in a bucket. Like I'll sit on a cardboard box or a milk crate or something.
Let me ask you this. Why is this not a next car for you? Because I know you've been looking at some Audis, you've been looking at like comparable cars. Like, I mean, is this not right up your alley?
Let's not get too far from what I actually like here. Like, don't get me wrong. I'll talk as much as I can about like where cars are at, because that's where we're at. I just hate new cars in general. This thing compared to classics is never going to match up to like an E46 M3.
Yeah.
I will drive an E46 10 times out of 10.
I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, I understand what's dope about those cars, but like, I feel like cars are just getting better.
Dude, they're getting better on paper, but like those cars, this will never be more fun to drive than a M3 CS from like 2006. That was, in my mind, the peak of performance before like regulation started to rein in all the things about cars that made them fun.
So when you're like going to shift that gear while you're racing your buddy next to you and it takes like 2 full seconds, that's fun for you?
Make yourself a short shifter, make the car, like we were just talking about this, if I can get heated and ventilated seats like in classic cars, that's a game changer, because that's, especially living in Miami,
okay,
that's one
but
of the major
by the time
things.
you finish doing all the things to the car, you've pretty much spent the money for a new car.
I know, but it's better. It's just literally better. And also, if anything ever broke or anything, like I don't have to deal with the dealership. I don't have to go to anybody to like rip the thing apart and plug in every one of the 5,000 sensors. I can just do it myself. And I recognize not everybody's in that position, but for me, dude, like it means so much more to me to have the classic driving experience. But if that wasn't the case, this would be a great next car.
Yeah, like let's talk a little bit about what this thing looks like. It's interesting for me. I like it, but again, I just think it's a little bit understated, which I guess is the point.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like they could have went a little bit crazier on the aggressiveness and really made this thing look a little bit better in my opinion.
I think they dialed it up on the goof factor too far.
Yeah, like why they do that?
It's a little goofy.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know, man.
What made them do that?
I have no idea.
It's almost like they knew that the person buying this wanted it to look a little goofy, so they were like, all right, let's do that.
Yeah, the focus groups must have been having some goof juice that day. I don't know. This thing is weird looking.
Like this with like a nice aero kit and some aggressive bits would actually be pretty cool.
Dude.
And I've seen them aftermarket.
Yeah.
Like they're pretty sick.
The lights I think are a big problem. The body lines are pretty boring, and yeah, the ground effects and like the bumpers and the aero are just like kind of last gen and like a little bit Subaru-y to me.
The paint colors this thing comes in are pretty beautiful.
Yeah, that purple.
So you got the blue, which I actually like this like powder baby blue. You've got the purple, which is so nice. See that thing in person, you're like, what? You're like, that's stock?
Yeah.
And then I can't believe I'm saying this. Even the red.
Yeah, the red is
Have you
really
seen
good.
the red
Yeah.
M2?
Mhm.
I don't even like red cars, and somehow like it's pretty nice.
Yeah, BMW always has some banger paints. Oh man, I was just seeing this listing for a Laguna Seca Blue E90. And it was like one of 3 ever made. It was like a manual E90 in Laguna Seca Blue. I was like, oh my god, they need to bring that color back. That would have been a banger on this car actually.
Let me refresh my memory. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that thing goes crazy.
No, and I've said it before on the podcast, but I'll say it again. An E46 M3 in manual in Laguna Seca Blue, top 5 cars of all time, and it's not 5.
With that said, let's give this thing a glaze score. First things first, performance.
Performance, I'm giving it the same score I gave the C8, 7.
I'm giving it the same thing I gave the M3, a 7.
Fair.
I don't like how you said that. I just don't like how you compared it to the C8. Like, there's a direct comparison.
I have an agenda here, and it's
Yeah.
to tell people
I can see that.
that this is an alternative to an LT1 C8.
I can see that. All right, what'd you give it for design?
Design 6, and that's a little generous, honestly, now that I'm looking at it.
I also gave it a 6. Dude, I'm getting sick and tired of us agreeing on
I know,
cars.
I know,
It's not,
I know.
It's not what's supposed to happen here.
It's because we did all the controversial cars already.
All right, here we go. Here's our value.
8.
Okay, I gave it a 7.
Okay.
So we're kind of in the same ballpark, but like I just thought like, for me, I think the C8's a better value.
I agree.
I'm gonna get crucified for that probably, but like, sorry. So yeah, I give this thing a 7. But I mean, look, it's still good value.
Yeah.
Perception.
6, again, I think I'm a little generous.
I give it a 6 too.
Yeah.
Yo, what's happening here? We're not talking about these scores. How are we just consistently... Dude, again,
That's just what the car is,
anytime
man.
we're agreeing, you just know that this is what it is.
Yeah, we did the controversial ones.
We have opposite opinions on so many things. Give the car the same score, you know that's what it is.
No, we did very different math and got the same numbers.
Yeah. Okay. All right, well, with that said, I think I'm surprised how sick the car actually is. Like, the fact that it's just an M3 in a smaller form factor, I said it, but I'll say it again, is actually awesome. And if you live in a place where, like, you don't have to worry about, like, perception, clout, like all those things that are, like, so prevalent in somewhere like Miami, then, like, this car, I think, is just a better buy.
Dude, I'm glad you came around on this. I love this car. Like, I really want BMW to understand that they need to make more cars like this and have the ethos of their product lineup be more focused around driver-centric cars like this. Yeah, I'm glad we agree and we glazed it a little bit because it deserved it.
Yeah, I agree. But we live in Miami, so buy an M3. Thanks for watching.
It's true.